So the good news that we were waiting for has finally arrived, and the official notification for the RBI Grade B panel year 2022 is officially out on the RBI website itself. So there is no more scope for speculation anymore, and whatever we kept on telling you over the last several weeks has finally come true. हम बार बार आपको बताते रहे कि YouTube पे बहुत speculation चल रहा है. There's a lot of rumors going on in YouTube. Keep preparing, do not be bothered about these things, and that's exactly what has happened. So those of you who are continuing your preparation without being bothered about whatever was being talked about on YouTube would have actually saved a lot of precious time, because everything, literally everything, is actually the same, and I will discuss as to why this is probably the best opportunity for you to crack the RBI Grade B exam. इस साल से बेहतर अपॉर्चुनिटी आरबीआई ग्रेड बी को क्रैक करने का शायद ही मिल पाएगा. एंड व्हाई एम आई सेइंग दैट? We will discuss that in the notification today. And the RBI again keeps saying that the life with RBI is not just another career. It is a commitment. And why is it a commitment? Because you're contributing to serve the nation, wherein your decisions make an impact on the economy, on the country, and the financial sector as a whole. And that is why this is one of the most lucrative careers. And lucrative क्यों है वो भी हम आज बात करेंगे. But this is one of the most lucrative careers in the banking and financial sector in terms of the respect that you get, in terms of the pay that you get, in terms of the perks that you get. Everything you name it, it is there in this particular job, right? So बहुत ही golden opportunity है, and ये golden opportunity क्यों है ये भी हम आज discuss करेंगे. So let's quickly look into the key aspects very fast as to what are the key elements that are there in this notification. So पहली चीज जो निकल के आती है वो ये है कि आपके पास काफी ज्यादा time available रहेगा. Right, so that is the first thing that you're looking at. So you're going to have more time. Context क्या है कि पहली बार ऐसा हुआ है जहां पे नोटिफिकेशन और एग्जाम के बीच में 2 महीने का गैप दिया. So exactly 2 months right now, starting from March 28th till May 28th. So you've got 2 months time for your phase 1 preparation. Of course, we will tell you that phase 1 अकेले प्रिपेयर नहीं करना है इस वक्त. You have to do phase 1 and phase 2 both, right? Because phase 1 and phase 2 के बाद थोड़ा टाइम कम है, wherein you have got roughly around 3.5 weeks to go, which means that phase 2 के लिए directly time कम मिलेगा. But those of you who've been with us, who've been preparing with us, you are aware that we've already been preparing quite hard for the last 1 year. So it's all about revision at this point of time. But those of you who are not yet started, this time is probably the best opportunity, because इतना time पहले कभी नहीं मिला था between the date of release of the notification and the actual phase 1 exam. So काफी time है अभी भी, and अगर आप fresh start कर रहे हो, if you're someone who's starting afresh, it is still possible to crack this exam. Now moving on to another important point, right? So first things first, right? So you have the same pattern literally, right? So phase 1 का pattern भी pretty much similar है. So of course phase 1 में अभी हमारे पास breakup नहीं है कि what will be the individual marks allocated to each of the sections, but the sections are the same, and the wordings of the notification जैसे पिछले साल appear हुआ था, the same kind of wordings have been used this year as well. So you can assume with fairly reasonable certainty that the individual sectional contributions to that phase 1 exam will also be the same, right? We'll talk about those things in some bit. And similarly, when you talk about phase 2 also, it is the same set of papers, same pattern, same objective plus descriptive, everything is literally the same, right? Which is what I'm saying, that since there is no change in the pattern also, you've got used to that pattern, looking at that pattern for the last 1 year now, and it is probably the best opportunity to crack the exam, because pattern में भी कोई change नहीं है. अगर आप consistently पढ़ाई कर रहे थे और अगर आप consistently अगले 2-3 महीने में भी पढ़ाई करोगे, this is still probably the best opportunity to crack the exam, because pattern is still the same. Next thing that comes across is in terms of vacancies. We'll do a comparison of the vacancies with respect to the last year as well, but we're looking at 238 vacancies across the RBI Grade B Direct Recruit General Cadre, and then you have 31 and 25 respectively for your DEPR and DSIM categories as well, right? So vacancies are pretty decent if you look at it. Now, of course, if you look at the hierarchy of your banking exams, this is definitely the key exam to take in 2022, because RBI is at the pinnacle, is at the top when you talk about banking and the financial sector. So obviously you have the SBIs of the world, IBPS and the related institutions that are there. Then you have your NABARD, SIDBI, all those guys are there definitely. I don't deny that at all. But RBI is there right up at the top. Even SEBI is there. But even from that perspective, the respect that you get as an RBI officer is phenomenal. It's par excellence. And even the top companies, top banks like, let's say, the Citibanks of the world, the JP Morgans of the world, and all of these guys also treat the guys from RBI with huge amount of respect, because ultimately you are the central bank of the country and you are the #1 regulator of India, right? Which is why this is a key exam to take for us in the year 2022. Next thing that comes out, number of attempts that you're allowed. Again, it is remaining at 6 attempts only. When I say 6 attempts, if you've filled the form and only if you've appeared for the phase 1 will it be considered as an attempt. So if you've filled the form, if you've not appeared for the exam, it will not be considered as an attempt. So 6 attempts allowed hain, right? And if you are someone who's very serious about the exam, and even if you have not started the preparation right now, since the exam pattern is the same, everything fundamentally remains the same, you are definitely someone who should target the exam this year itself, right? Worst case scenario, even if you're not able to crack the exam, you still have 5 attempts to go. But this is probably the easiest way for you to get into the RBI because pattern is the same. Enough time is also available, right? So if you're serious about getting into the RBI Grade B, then you should definitely target the exam this year. Right. The next thing that is also there is that the fees is also the same. So let's say for the general category, it is around 850 rupees, and for your reserved category, it is at rupees 100. And of course, if you're someone who's basically a staff of the Reserve Bank of India, there is no fee at all, right? So if you're, let's say, an RBI assistant and you're trying to apply for the post of RBI Grade B, then there is no fees for you at all. And the next thing that comes up is again a very crucial aspect. Now, if you look at the age, so age has to be between 21 and 30. And this is as on 1st of January 2022. Now, technically, when you look at the notification, the last year's cutoff date was also 1st of January 2021, right? But the reason why this is important to understand is that last year notification आपका जनवरी में ही आया था और जनवरी का ही उन्होंने डेट कंसिडर किया. So उस हिसाब से they should have ideally given out this cutoff date as March this year because the notification has come out in the month of March this year. But they have not done that. They have retained with the same date but just advanced it by 1 year. So technically, you have to be between the age of 21 to 30 and that has to be as on 1st of January 2022. That is the age cutoff that is there. Of course, there are several age relaxations as well that are applicable for the reserved categories and other categories as well. But one important thing that also came out is that when you talk about the age relaxation, if you are, let's say, someone who's working in a scheduled commercial bank, which is part of the second schedule of the RBI Act of 1934, technically, you are eligible for an age relaxation there as well. Now, what is the amount of age relaxation? Maximum allowed is 3 years, but obviously it depends upon the number of years of experience you have. So let's say, for example, if you have 1 year experience, then only that 1 year will be calculated for your age relaxation. The second angle is whatever your period of time that you've spent as a probationer, right? So whatever is your probationary period, that will not be considered as experience, right? So you should have worked beyond your probationary period. Only then the age relaxation comes into the picture, right? And again, the age relaxation is not just applicable to your scheduled commercial banks. It is also applicable to your all India financial institutions, be it your NABARD, SIDBI, EXIM and all those guys. And it is also applicable to your public sector insurance companies or the PSICs as well, right? So those are the age relaxations up to a maximum of 3 years. The other thing that basically comes out is that when you look at the RBI itself, there is a probationary period of 2 years wherein you will be on probation. So that is something which you've got to factor. So for 2 years, after getting selected as an RBI Grade B officer, you have to work as a probationer for 2 full years. Now, considering all of these facts, it is probably very clear and evident to you guys that this is definitely the best chance to crack the RBI Grade B because of various factors. More time available, pattern remaining the same, right? And of course, you have the luxury of knowing the, kind of questions that have appeared in the last year as well, right? So all of those benefits are definitely there. And you also have the liberty of focusing only on this exam because SEBI is already done and you still have enough time to go for the SBI and the IBPS exams as well. So there is enough time. So this is probably the best chance for you to crack the RBI Grade B exam because agle saal ka pata nahi. If the pattern changes, you never know. So this time the pattern has kept exactly the same. And you have the best possible chance of cracking the RBI Grade B. So if you're someone who's been sincerely preparing, I'm sure that you will be extremely happy. And those of our students who've been studying with us regularly on the paid batch itself, they would definitely be happy because all the efforts that you've put in over the last several months and even the year is actually going to bear fruit for you guys now, right? Because all the effort is actually now going to culminate into revision for you guys. And if you're someone who's preparing afresh, even if you're starting now, is ample time. There is 2 months for phase 1 and there is obviously a month for phase 2, right? Obviously, you might be scared that, there have been so many people who've been preparing for the last 1 year. It doesn't matter how much people have prepared in the last 1 year. What matters is what people do or what the aspirants do in the next 2 months and the month after that, right? That is what is going to matter the most because those who are prepared also, they also need to put in a lot of hard work in the next 2 to 3 months to focus on their revision, right? And ultimately point ये आ जाता है कि चाहे आप 10 बार पढ़ो और चाहे आप एक बार पढ़ो, अगर एक बार भी आपने ढंग से पढ़ाई की है, even then it is good enough, which is where I still feel that for someone who's starting afresh, this year is probably the best opportunity to crack it because you have time at your disposal, right? So keep that in mind. As I keep reiterating, this is the best chance to crack the RBI Grade B at this point in time. We don't know what's the pattern going to be next year, so make use of this year to the best of your abilities. Right. So I'll quickly move myself away from the screen and we will discuss some of the other critical aspects of this notification. So let's quickly look at some of the critical aspects. So one of the most important thing, of course, is the date, right? But of course, before I get into that, another thing which I wanted to mention is that when you talk about the OBC certificate that needs to be provided for your age-related relaxations, or let's say your category certificate, that has to be on or after 1st of January 2021. But before the closing date of the application, right? So it has to be between 1st January 2021 and the closing date that has technically been given is in the month of April. So that is what will be considered when the OBC certificate needs to be issued. Now, quickly looking at the important dates. So the online registration and payment of fee, basically it opens today, that is 28th of March 2022, and it is open till April 18th, 2022 up to 6 p.m. That is the time that has been provided. Now, when I look at the phase 1 online examination that is going to be conducted on 28th of May 2022, and that is basically in a single shift, you have to appear for that. Then the expected timelines is that anywhere between 2 to 3 weeks can be the time amount that can be taken for the results to basically get published on the RBI website. Of course, they will try to give you enough time, and again, this is irrelevant whether you actually make it or not into the next stage. We don't depend on the results, right? So we automatically, once the phase 1 is over, we continue our preparation and start focusing on phase 2, irrespective of what the result comes. So, but any case, the results should be out by, let's say, the first or the second week, so that you obviously have time for phase 2 to prepare as well. So, but again, as I said, we don't depend on the results of phase 1. We continue our journey, we continue our preparation. And in case, God forbid, that the result does not turn out to be in your favor, you would still be better off in terms of your preparation, in terms of your understanding of the subjects, and that can definitely help you in the next year's exam as well, right? Now, in case everything works out well and you actually clear the phase 1 exam, and the phase 2 again has paper 1, 2 and 3, which is again an online examination, which will be held on 25th of June 2022, and this again will happen in multiple shifts. So you have to appear for each of those shifts. Even if you miss one of them, then your candidature will not be considered. So you have to appear in all of those shifts. Now, when you look at the declaration of results for phase 2, then obviously there will be some amount of time that will be taken. You can tentatively assume this to be around July end, and that is a tentative number that I'm giving you. Of course, it can be earlier than that or later than that as well. And then again, you have the conduct of interviews, which will probably be July onwards. It again depends on the situation in terms of COVID and a lot of other factors as well. And this could probably be happening towards the end of July, or let's say beginning of September, and even later than that as well. And of course, the provisional allotment will be beyond September or even let's say October, because last year when you look at it, the results came out in September 2021. When the exams happened in March and April. So you can definitely assume that this can definitely go beyond September, and you can look at probably October, November or even December when the final provisional allotments will actually come through. So that is on the important dates for this exam. Now moving further, the context is that why RBI Grade B? I wanted to give you a comparison of how the panel year 2021 versus the panel year 2022 looks like. So let's look at those numbers now, right? So this is what we have in store as far as panel year 2021 is concerned. Now this is what we have in terms of panel year 2022. So very key aspects, right? When you observe, look at the pay scale. You're moving up. So it was 35,150, but it's gone up to 55,200, right? And if you look at it again, you have the increments also that have gone up. Right, so this was 50,900 and is basically now 80,850, and again several such increments, and you're eventually going up to 99,750. That is the context as compared to 62,400, right? So there's a significant jump in terms of the pay, right? And this is just the basic that you're talking about. The in-hand will be much higher, right? The in-hand will be much higher. So when you look at the overall initial monthly gross emoluments, that has gone up from 83,254 to 1,08,404, plus so many perquisites that are available, and you can rest assured that this amount will be significantly higher, and you will have something massive coming up your way. So again, why RBI Grade B is so good? Because the bank provides its own accommodation. Even cities like, let's say, a Mumbai or a Bangalore or any other tier 1 city, the bank provides awesome accommodation, and it will definitely be far better than what you can search on your own, right? Of course, If you're not being able to get your bank accommodation, then of course a house allowance of 15% of basic pay will be paid in case the accommodation is not provided by the bank. And again, you have so many reimbursements that are there. The reimbursements for maintenance of vehicle for official purpose, newspaper, telephone charges, book grant, allowance for furnishing of residence, right? All these are there. Then you have free dispensary facilities as well, besides the reimbursements of any kinds of medical expenditure that you incurred for your OPD treatment or hospitalization. And again, you have interest-free festival advances that is also there. Then your leave travel allowance is also there for yourself, spouse and your eligible dependents. Then you also have loans and advances at concessional rates for your housing, vehicle, education, consumer articles, personal computers. So many things, guys. Is amazing, right? And when you look at this number might look at to be very small, but when combined with the perquisites, this is a massive number. So many expenses of yours are actually getting taken care of by themselves, right? And again, selected candidates will be governed by the definition in terms of the contribution towards your national pension scheme as well. So even post-retirement, you have a great life, right? And again, adding to it the benefit of gratuity as well. So all of these things have pretty much remained the same. And whatever I've highlighted are the big changes. And these are big, right? These are big numbers. Right? Even when you look at it from a basic perspective, right? So अगर आप ये jump देखो तो 83,000 कहाँ और 1,08,000 कहाँ? There's a massive jump of 25,000 per month, guys, right? So that is like 3 lakh ka straight jump in the annual package. So that is something which is absolutely phenomenal. And this is just the monthly gross emoluments. When you look at the perquisites, this number can easily get doubled and beyond. That is what I'm trying to convey to you guys. So what I'm trying to say is, guys, this is a golden opportunity. One, this is probably the best chance that you have to crack the RBI Grade B, and look at the perquisites, look at the salaries, massive, right? Just one word for that, massive. And this is an excellent opportunity in terms of great, respect for the kind of work that you do, right? In terms of the kind of respect the industry gives to you, the kind of respect the country gives to you, and of course, great work in terms of understanding banking and finance as well, especially in the context of so many different things coming up. Fintech चल रहा है, आप regulatory angle में बहुत सारे changes लेके आ रहे हो, and you talk about the central bank digital currency as well. So many things happening in the RBI right now because finance itself is undergoing a massive revolution at this stage. Because of the advent of technology, हम fintech के बारे में तो बहुत बात करते रहते हैं. So there is so much changing in finance that the regulator needs to be on its toes. So RBI, it's not just a safe job. RBI is not just a respected job, but RBI is a job that can actually help you learn massively in your career, right? So that is what RBI can provide you, a golden opportunity to learn and grow yourself in the field of banking and finance, right? And as I kept saying throughout this session, I reiterated, this is probably your best chance to crack this exam. You can sense my excitement as well, right? Because I'm excited for you guys. I sense that this is a great opportunity for you guys, and I want to make sure that you don't waste this, right? Tremendous opportunity, huge amount of time left. Just focus on your preparation, and trust me, pretty soon you will be there in the RBI as a grade B officer. And मैं बता रहा हूँ ना, मतलब the sense of just being there in that atmosphere. So I've actually spent some amount of time with the RBI, of course, not working with them, but as a consultant, and I actually had a great time. I could sense that power whenever I used to go into the financial markets division, right, and the IDMD departments, which was then at that point of time, the LAF, repo, reverse repo, the way it was getting handled, I could sense the power in that room. It's absolutely phenomenal, right? And I just want you guys to experience it. And that is why it's important to motivate yourself, because this is probably the best chance to crack it. And this is probably the best place to work in the banking and finance industry as well. So my excitement aside, I'll move myself away from the screen again and let's concentrate on the rest of the notification. Right. So moving further ahead into the next segment, which is basically talking about the vacancies, and we look at a comparison vis-a-vis what is happening in panel year 2022 versus what happened in panel year 2021. So again, when you look at the age limit 21 to 30 as on 1st of January 2022, and this was basically 1st of January 2021. The only problem was that in this case, the exam or the notification also came out in the month of January itself, towards the end of it. In this case, the notification has come out in the month of March. So this is a significant change in that context. So 2 months is something which some candidates might actually lose out on. Now, when I look at the vacancies, now you have to understand one thing, right? So when you look at the vacancies that were there in the panel year 2021, they also had included the vacancies of 2020 into it, because obviously because of COVID lockdowns and a lot of other things, exams did not happen. And as a result, this was a combined vacancy that was basically provided. But when you look at this one, this is a fairly good number when you look at a single year, right? So from a single year perspective, this is a decent number in terms of vacancies that have come out, and 31 in your DEPR and 25 in your DSIM. And if you're a general category a student who's aspirant who's preparing, then you have basically 109 seats in the direct recruit. That is the context. So overall vacancies, technically when you look at it from a 1 year perspective, then you have to look at it and say that this has definitely improved, because this was more a combined 2-year kind of a scenario wherein 2020 was completely eaten up by COVID. Right. So moving further ahead, let's try and look at some of the patterns in the exams as well, right? So one thing that you need to understand here is that when I talk about the pattern for phase 1, it does mention these sections that you have general awareness, you have English language, you have quantitative aptitude, and you also have reasoning that is there in the basic syllabus that has been mentioned. But one thing that needs to be understood here is that the current notification does not mention the number of questions. It does not mention what will be the individual time allotted for each of these sections. So that information will probably come out in the information handout that the RBI gives out prior to the exam, right? But since the wording looks pretty similar to the kind of wordings that we have last year, so I think we can fairly assume that this is expected to be the number of questions in each of these sections. So a total of 200 questions can be expected. And the time duration has been already given to us. It is said that the time duration total is going to be 120 minutes. Now, how is that split going to be? And again, we can expect the time limits also to be same, because the wordings of the notification look pretty similar. So we can assume that the timings for your individual sections also should ideally remain the same. And obviously in that context, even the maximum marks that are allocated should ideally again remain the same. But of course, this is something that we are expecting. More information on this front will be available once the official information handout comes on the RBI website, right? Till that time, all that we know is that there are going to be these 4 sections and there is going to be a total time allotted of 120 minutes. What else do we know? We also know that the candidates must secure minimum marks separately for each test as well as in aggregate. So, har ek section will have a separate individual cutoff, and there will also be an aggregate cutoff, and separate time will also be allotted for each test. Of course, when I say that there is separate minimum marks for each test and there's an aggregate cutoff, obviously there has to be a separate time allotted for each test as well. That is how you'll be able to measure the cutoff in each test as well, right? Now, when we look at the cutoffs for the previous year, so what I'm looking at is the cutoff for the panel year 2021, and I look at the cutoff for the 2019 exam. If you look at this, general awareness basically had, when I look at 21 now, I'm talking about last year, general awareness was at 16, English and quant were at 6, and reasoning was at 12. These were the individual sectional cutoffs that were there, and there was an overall cutoff of 66.75 because the paper was considered to be quite tough in phase 1 last year. Right. Again, general awareness had a massive weightage overall in the scheme of things. Now, when you look at 1 year back, right, and that is where the unpredictability aspect comes of it, right? So when you look at the period of the cutoff of 2019 exam, you basically look at 20 for general awareness, 7.5 for quant, and reasoning was at 15, and there was an overall cutoff of 122. Look at the difference. 122 just 1 year back, and then 66.75 in the last year, which means that the paper just prior to the last year was definitely quite easy. It was a sitter, which is where the cutoff went significantly higher. So the reason I'm trying to mention these things to you is because of the fact that do not rely on the cutoffs that have been there for the last year or the year prior to that, because it is irrelevant. Why do I say that? Because the cutoff depends on how the students have performed and what was the difficulty level, and a lot of factors come into play when you discuss the cutoff, right? So do not bother about what the cutoff was. This year's cutoff may be entirely different from what we've seen in the phase 1 for last year and the phase 1 that happened prior to that as well, right? So the cutoffs could be completely different based on how difficult the exam was, how well the students have prepared, and a lot of such factors, right? So this is just to give you an indication of how the cutoffs have evolved over the last couple of years, right? Now, I'll again move myself out of the screen. We will focus on phase 2. Now, phase 2, obviously, there is more information that has been provided, so to speak. And when I look at this number, it basically again has 3 papers, which is basically your paper 1, which is your economic and social issues. Then you have paper 2, which is English writing skills. And again, you have paper 3, wherein they've just added this term general in front of finance. So you're saying general finance and management, right? So when you look at the type again, as far as paper 1 and paper 3 are concerned, so you have 50% objective, 50% descriptive, which means in terms of marks allocation, 50 marks will be allocated to objective, 50 marks allocated for descriptive, and the total will be 100. And this is the same case for paper 3 as well, right? And again, the time allocation will be 30 minutes for your objective questions, right? And 90 minutes for your descriptive questions. That is total of 120. One thing to notice here is that when you talk about general finance and management, if you look at the notification that has come out, it does not give you the split of 30 and 90. Right. So RBI has given scope for speculation here because technically it just mentions the total time of 120 when it comes to general finance and management, but it does not tell us what is the actual split between your objective and your descriptive sections. Even though paper 1 and paper 3 have specific instructions that have been mentioned, it says that you have 30 questions in objective, which will be worth 50 marks. And it will obviously be a mix of 2 marks and 1 mark questions. And when you look at the permutation combinations, the way you look at it is that it will give you 2 mark questions, and that will be 20, which gives you 40 marks in total. And then you have your 1 mark questions, which will probably be 10, and that gives you 10 marks. And this total is worth 50 marks, right? So even though your paper 3 does not give you this split of time, 30 plus 90, it just gives you the total time of 120. We can be, I think, safely assuming that this split should ideally remain the same. I don't think that there should be any tinkering in this, but just like it has been mentioned in paper 1 ESI, wherein it says 30 plus 90, the same thing is not mentioned in general finance and management. 30 plus 90 is not mentioned. Only the total time of 120 is given, right? But again, it's the RBI has given scope for speculation, but it may still very well be a case wherein 30 and 90 is the split, because your number of questions, again, because it says paper 1 and paper 3 combined, it says 30 questions are there, 50 marks. So I'm assuming that 30 questions, then you should definitely give 30 minutes at least. That should be the thought process. And again, even in descriptive also, it very clearly says that you have 6 questions out of which you have to attempt any 4, and it is again worth 50 marks, wherein 2 questions will be for 15 marks, and this will be of a higher difficulty level, and there will be 2 questions of 10 marks each. Right, so there's again total of 30 plus 20. This is again worth 50 marks. Now, since the instructions on this front for paper 1 and paper 3 are the same, I'm assuming that the timing should ideally also be the same by both paper 1 and paper 3. But unfortunately, because the RBI has not mentioned 30 and 90 specifically in paper 3, it has given rise to some speculation, right? But assumption is that it should ideally be the same as paper 1. Now, the other important aspect is that the candidates, again, based on their aggregate marks that they've obtained in phase 2, which is your paper 1, paper 2 and paper 3 combined, they will be shortlisted for the interview, right? And there obviously will be a psychometrics test that will be conducted by the Reserve Bank of India for the candidates that are appearing for the interview, right? But obviously this will not form a part of your overall final score in terms of selection, but there will be a psychometric test as well. Then obviously you will have the interview worth 75 marks. Of course, here again you have to prepare quite well, because there are so many candidates who actually faltered at this step, having done very well in phase 1 and phase 2. So interview again becomes a very, very important segment for you to crack. And then the final selection will be based on the marks that have been secured in phase 2 and the interview. And of course, if there are any grace marks to be provided based on the extent rules, that will be provided. Now, when you look at the cutoffs on this front, last year what happened was that out of the 300 in terms of your paper 1, paper 2 and paper 3, out of the 300 score, the cutoff was 187.75, right? And when you look at the overall score in terms of final selection, the cutoff was at 252.25 out of a total of 375, which includes your 75 marks of the interview as well. So this is where the cutoff was as far as the final selection was concerned, and this is where the cutoff was in terms of your shortlisting for the interview was concerned, right? So I hope this has given you quite a clear picture in terms of how the pattern looks like for phase 2. So the key learnings for us on this front is that this is a great opportunity, right? And generally there's a saying that when opportunity knocks, we're either out or sleeping in. But if you're going to be out or if you're going to be sleeping in, you're going to miss probably the best chance for you to crack the RBI Grade B, because the pattern technically remains almost the same. Right, of course, some granular information in terms of phase 1 obviously needs to come out, which will come out in the information handout, but pretty much everything is the same. And again, I reiterate, why is this the best chance? Because you have ample time, right? The pattern is the same this year, which means it's not something new. And we've done significant analysis on this set of patterns, right? Based on the exam last year as well. And I'm adding the links of those videos in the description to this particular video. You can go through those patterns and it'll give you a great idea as to how the things have evolved. And of course, anyone who's been preparing with us over the last year or so should definitely be smiling, because we have been on track and everything is in place for you guys. All you need to do is revise. But again, I reiterate that if you're someone who's starting fresh, it is still a great opportunity because there is ample time available. and you can definitely prepare and crack the RBI Grade B Phase 1 in the next 2 months, and of course Phase 2 in the next 3 months. Significant amount of time, and you can definitely do well. For those of you who are looking at complete guidance at this point of time, then of course we have our own program running as well, so you can definitely enroll for that. And of course in the next coming days we'll also come out with our own detailed strategy and plan as to how you can crack Phase 1 and Phase 2, and what are the things that should be prioritized and what should be given importance and what should be the sequence in which things should be done. So those things is something which we'll definitely share with you guys. Goes without saying that if you want to crack it, then of course you have to shut down everything else that is going on around you, shut down social media, shut down gatherings, shut down everything else, and most importantly shut down IPL. Right? So focus only on your preparation at this point of time. And if you're fully steadfast in your preparation, you focus hard and you're smart in focusing on the right things, then trust me, you can crack RBI Grade B this year, and you will be sitting in that plush RBI office once this entire process gets over. So have that faith, have that enthusiasm, have that energy, because right now there is nothing that can motivate you better than basically the perks, the emoluments, the salary, the respect, and the learning that you can get at the RBI. So there is no great motivation than this. Guys, pull up your socks. Time to gear up and crack this exam. Let's crack this together. So more to come from our side. But for today, this is Ravi signing off. Have a great day and a wonderful, wonderful preparation journey over the next 2 and 3 months. See you guys.